Discovery. The crystalline displays aboard the xenobiological research vessel, Starweaver, pulsed with an eerie blue glow, casting strange shadows across Captain Zenos' fur-covered face. His second officer, a tall, willowy being from the Centauri system, stood silently beside him as they watched the feed from their newest discovery. Neither had expected to find what lay before them, a human colony, hidden away on a heavy world that shouldn't exist. Engineer Tay's fingers danced across her console, each movement precise and calculated. She had been with the Starweaver for 3 standard years, the only human among a crew of 32 different species. The responsibility of first contact protocols usually fell to her, but this time was different. This time, something felt wrong. "Captain," she called out, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "I'm picking up some unusual readings from the surface. The settlement patterns, they don't match any known human colonial architecture." The colony called itself Australia, a name that sent chills down Tay's spine. In all of human history, there had only been one Australia, and it had been lost with Earth during the Great Exodus. Yet here was another, claiming that sacred name. Dr. Retton, the ship's xenoanthropologist, moved closer to examine her readings. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep concentration among his species. Fascinating. The cultural markers suggest isolation, but the technology level indicates outside influence. Someone has been here before us. The captain's ears twitched forward, a gesture Tay had learned meant intense interest. "Elaborate, Doctor." "The settlement patterns show signs of military precision, but their communication broadcasts." He paused, mandibles clicking softly. "They speak of Earth as if it were destroyed by divine intervention. They believe themselves to be the chosen ones, saved from humanity's corruption." Tay felt her stomach twist. She had studied Earth's history extensively, including the dark periods that had nearly torn humanity apart. This ideology seemed eerily familiar, reminiscent of extremist groups that had once preached isolation and genetic purity. As she delved deeper into the colony's transmissions, a pattern emerged. Their society was built on strict hierarchies, with purity as their highest virtue. Any deviation from their established norms was met with harsh punishment. They spoke of Earth as a cautionary tale, a world that had burned itself to ash because it embraced diversity and change. But something didn't add up. The colony's technology was too advanced for a group that supposedly left Earth before the Great Exodus. Their ships, their energy signatures, they shouldn't have been possible. "Captain," Tay said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to show you something." She pulled up a series of readings from her deep space scans. "There's a wreck on the surface. It's old, very old, but the design." She took a deep breath. "It's Inch." The captain's fur bristled at the mention of the notorious space pirates. The Inch had been a plague upon the galaxy for centuries, known for their brutal efficiency and complete lack of moral constraints. They were also known for something else, their preference for human cargo. Dr. Retton's analysis suddenly made horrible sense. This wasn't a lost colony of Earth, it was a slave camp that had evolved into something far more insidious. The descendants of those original captives had built their entire society around the trauma of their ancestors, twisting it into a doctrine of superiority and isolation. As the implications sank in, Tay felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. As the ship's human representative, she would need to make first contact with these people. But how do you approach a society built on lies? How do you tell people that their entire worldview is based on a horrific crime committed against their ancestors? The captain seemed to sense her dilemma. "Engineer Tay, prepare a full contact protocol assessment." "Dr. Retton, I want a complete cultural analysis. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with before we make any moves." As Tay began her work, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something momentous. This discovery would send shockwaves through the human sphere once word got out. A lost colony of Earth was one thing, but this this was something else entirely. The truth about Australia would have to come out eventually. The question was, would its people be able to handle it? And more importantly, would they want to? Echoes of the past. The holographic display in Dr. Retton's laboratory painted ghostly patterns across the walls as he reviewed the data from the Inch vessel's wreckage. Each fragment of information told a story more horrifying than the last. Behind him, Engineer Tay stood motionless, her face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the ancient ship's logs. They were methodical, Retton said, his 4 eyes focusing and refocusing as he processed the information. The Inch didn't just take random survivors. They selected specific genetic profiles, primarily from Earth's most isolated and environmentally harsh regions. Tay's fingers clenched involuntarily. They were breeding stock, she said, the words bitter in her mouth. They wanted humans adapted to extreme conditions for their mining operations. The ship's records had revealed a calculated operation spanning decades. The Inch had visited Earth multiple times, always targeting the same regions, always taking the same types of people. But their final visit had coincided with humanity's darkest hour, the nuclear holocaust that had forced the Great Exodus. The stasis pods malfunctioned during the atmospheric radiation surge, Retton continued, bringing up detailed schematics. The crew died instantly, but the cargo hold was better shielded. The survivors would have awakened to find themselves alone on an alien world, with no way to call for help. Captain Zenos entered the laboratory, his presence filling the room despite his silence. He had been monitoring the colony's communications, trying to piece together how a group of traumatized survivors had transformed into the society they now observed. "They've developed a unique theological framework," he said, joining them at the display. "They believe they were literally lifted from Earth by divine intervention, saved from humanity's sins. The Inch ship's crash has become their founding miracle." Tay pulled up her own findings, overlaying them with Retton's analysis. "It gets worse. The original survivors would have had access to the ship's database, including Earth's history. But over generations, they've selectively edited and reinterpreted that information to support their narrative of superiority." The captain's ears flattened against his skull. "Show me." Together, they watched as centuries of history unfolded before them. The colony's early years had been desperate, with the survivors struggling to adapt to their new world. But they had one advantage: the Inch ship's advanced technology. While most of it was damaged beyond repair, enough remained to give them a significant head start. "They've built their entire society around preventing what they believe happened to Earth," Retton observed. "Their strict hierarchies, their obsession with genetic purity, their rejection of change, it's all designed to avoid what they see as humanity's mistakes." But it was Tay who discovered the most disturbing aspect of their investigation. Deep in the colony's transmission archives, she found evidence of previous contact with other human ships. Ships that had never been heard from again. "They're killing them," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Any human vessel that gets too close disappears. They see them as contaminated, trying to corrupt their perfect society." The captain's fur bristled. "How many?" "At least 7 ships in the past decade alone. They've developed weapons using modified Inch technology. They're protecting their truth with lethal force." The implications were staggering. Not only had they discovered a lost human colony, but they'd found one that had become actively hostile to its own species. The very people they had come to rescue might well be their greatest threat. Dr. Retton's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep concern. "There's something else. The colony's population is growing, and they're running out of room. Their recent transmissions suggest they're planning to expand, by force if necessary. They see it as their divine mission," Tay added, bringing up more decoded transmissions. "They believe they're meant to purify humanity, one world at all. Their isolation is ending, but not in the way we hoped." Captain Zenos studied the data in silence, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "We have 3 problems. First, we must prevent them from expanding and threatening other colonies. Second, we need to help these people understand their true history. And third. He turned to Tay. We need to do both without becoming their next victims. Tay nodded, already formulating plans. The colony's defensive systems were advanced, but she had something they didn't: access to their own source code through the Inch wreckage. If she could understand their weapons, she might be able to neutralize them. But as she worked, a new transmission caught her attention. The colony was celebrating something called the Ascension Festival, marking the anniversary of their supposed divine rescue. And this year, they had something special planned. "Captain," she called out, her voice urgent. "They're launching their first major expedition. A fleet of ships, armed with their modified Inch weapons. They're calling it the Great Purification." The clock was now ticking. They had to find a way to reach these lost children of Earth before they started a war they couldn't possibly understand. But how do you save people who believe they're the ones doing the saving? The answer, Tay realized, might lie in the very thing the colony feared most: the truth about their own past. But revealing that truth could tear their society apart, or make them even more dangerous. Breaking point. The Starweaver's command center hummed with tension as Engineer Tay presented her findings to the assembled senior staff. The holographic display showed the colony's fleet movements, dozens of ships, each armed with weaponry that shouldn't exist, preparing for their Great Purification. "They've replicated the Inch ship's quantum cascade technology," Tay explained, highlighting the energy signatures. "But they've modified it beyond anything in our records. The original pirates used it for disabling ships, these people have turned it into a planet killer." Captain Zenos' fur rippled with concern. Timeline. The Ascension Festival begins in 3 days. Their fleet launches at dawn on the final day. Tay manipulated the display, showing projected flight paths. Their first target appears to be the Meridian colony. Population 50,000. Dr. Retton stepped forward, his normally methodical movements now sharp with urgency. "Captain, I've completed my analysis of their social structure. There's something you need to see." He gestured, and the display changed to show the colony's internal communications. "They're not as unified as they appear. There's an underground resistance movement." This caught everyone's attention. The captain's ears perked forward. "Explain." "Not everyone accepts the official doctrine. Some have preserved the true history, passed down in secret for generations. They know about the Inch, about the real reason their ancestors came here. They've been waiting for a chance to expose the truth." Tay felt a spark of hope, but it was tempered by caution. "How can we contact them without alerting the authorities?" "That's the problem," Retton clicked his mandibles nervously. "The Resistance uses quantum-entangled communications, technology they salvaged from the Inch wreck. We can't intercept or replicate their signals." The captain turned to his second officer, who had been silently observing until now. "Options?" "We could alert the Federation," the willowy Centaurian suggested. "Have them evacuate Meridian colony." "Too slow," Tay shook her head. "Even at maximum warp, the nearest Federation fleet is 2 weeks away. We need to stop this now." That's when the ship's sensors detected something new, a small craft, launching from the planet's surface under cover of darkness. Its trajectory brought it directly toward the Starweaver, but its weapons were powered down. "They're broadcasting on a secure channel," Tay reported, her fingers flying over the controls. Using first contact protocols. Old ones, from before the Great Exodus." The message was simple: "We know who you are. We know what you found. We want to help." The captain made his decision instantly. "Bring them aboard. Maximum security protocols. Engineer Tay, Dr. Retton, you're with me." The ship that docked in their hangar was a hybrid of salvaged Inch technology and local engineering. Its pilot emerged slowly, hands raised, a young woman with the characteristic features of the colony's inhabitants. But unlike the propaganda broadcasts they'd been monitoring, her eyes held no fanatical gleam. "My name is Sarah," she said, her accent thick but understandable. "I represent the Truth Keepers. We've been waiting for someone like you for generations." In the secure conference room, Sarah revealed the full scope of their situation. The Truth Keepers were more than just resistance, they were the descendants of the original Inch ship's engineers and scientists, people who had understood the true nature of their arrival. "Our ancestors knew they had to preserve the truth," she explained, "but they also knew that the trauma of our origins would tear the colony apart. So they waited, building their network, preparing for the day when we could rejoin humanity." "But why now?" Tay asked. "Why reach out to us?" Sarah's expression darkened. "Because the purifiers have gone too far. The weapons they've built, they don't just kill, they erase. The quantum cascade effect doesn't just destroy matter, it removes it from existence. No trace, no debris, no evidence that anything was ever there." Dr. Retton's analysis programs quickly confirmed her claims. The weapons were based on the Inch ship stasis technology, twisted into something that violated the fundamental laws of physics. "If these weapons are deployed against a populated world," he said gravely, "the effects could cascade through subspace. They could create a chain reaction that would threaten the entire sector." Sarah nodded. "That's why we had to act. The Truth Keepers have embedded themselves throughout colonial society, including the defense forces. We can help you disable their weapons, but we need your help to show our people the truth." Captain Zenos studied her intently. "Your people have killed other human ships. Why should we trust you?" "Because I can prove my loyalty," Sarah replied, producing a small data crystal. "This contains the override codes for the colony's defensive grid. The Truth Keepers have maintained access to the original Inch systems for generations. We can shut down their defenses, but we have to act before the Ascension Festival begins." As they analyzed Sarah's data, a plan began to take shape. The Truth Keepers had spent centuries building their network, placing their people in key positions throughout colonial society. With their help, the Starweaver's crew might have a chance to prevent the impending catastrophe. But time was running out. The Ascension Festival would begin in less than 72 hours, and with it, the launch of a fleet capable of unmaking reality itself. The fate of not just the colony, but potentially the entire sector, hung in the balance. And beneath it all, a deeper question lurked: even if they succeeded in stopping the fleet, how would the colony's people react when their entire worldview came crashing down around them? Shattered faith. The pre-dawn air on Australia's surface was thick with tension as Tay, Sarah, and a small team from the Starweaver made their way through the underground tunnels beneath the colony's capital. Above them, the streets were already filling with celebrants preparing for the Ascension Festival's opening ceremonies. "The main quantum control hub is 3 levels down," Sarah whispered, consulting a holographic map projected from an ancient Inch device. "We have maybe 2 hours before the morning security sweep." Dr. Retton, who had insisted on joining the mission, studied the bio-readings on his scanner. "The genetic markers in the population are fascinating. The Inch's selective breeding program created some unexpected adaptations." "Focus, Doctor," Tay muttered, checking her own equipment. The neural disruptors they carried were non-lethal but untested against the colonists' modified physiology. Another unknown in an already dangerous mission. Their plan was audacious: use the Truth Keepers' access codes to penetrate the colony's defense systems, disable the quantum cascade weapons, and broadcast the truth about their history during the festival's main ceremony. Captain Zenos and the Starweaver would remain in orbit, ready to intervene if things went wrong. But as they reached the lower levels, Sarah suddenly stopped. "Something's wrong. These security patterns, they're not normal." Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. A voice echoed through the corridors: "Attention all citizens. Phase 1 of the Great Purification has been advanced. The Ascension fleet launches in 30 minutes. This is not a drill. They knew. Sarah's face went pale. Someone in the Truth Keepers must have warned them. Tay's mind raced. Their carefully planned operation was collapsing before it began. How many ships can they launch on such short notice? Enough, Sarah's voice was grim. The weapons are already primed. Once they're in space. We split up, Tay decided. Sarah, take Dr. Retton to the communications center. Upload the historical records as planned. I'll head for the weapon control hub. Alone. Retton's mandibles clicked in alarm. The security forces will be converging there. Which is why one person has a better chance than a group. Tay checked her equipment one last time. If I can reach the main console, I can use the override codes to trigger an emergency shutdown. As they separated, Tay contacted the Starweaver. Captain, the timelines accelerated. Request permission to implement Protocol 0. There was a moment of static before Zenos responded. Granted. But Tay, make it count. Protocol 0 was a last resort option they'd prepared, a computer virus designed to infect and disable any system based on INCH technology. The risk was that it could also affect the colony's life support and infrastructure systems. They'd planned to use it only if all else failed. Now it was their only option. As Tay made her way through the increasingly crowded corridors, she could hear the excitement in the colonists' voices. They truly believed they were about to embark on a holy mission. The thought of what they planned to do made her stomach turn. The weapon control hub was surprisingly lightly guarded, until she realized why. The main controls had been transferred to the launch facility. What she was seeing was just a backup system. Tay, Sarah's voice crackled over the comm, we've reached the communications center, but we have a problem. The Truth Keepers, they're gone. All of them. The records we were counting on using as proof, they've been destroyed. A new voice cut through the channel, older, female, carrying the weight of authority. Of course they have been. Did you think we wouldn't find your little resistance movement? Through the control room's windows, Tay could see massive ships rising from hidden hangars across the colony. The Ascension fleet was launching ahead of schedule, and she was in the wrong place to stop it. I am High Judge Catherine, the voice continued. Sarah, your grandmother was one of our original Truth Keepers. She understood, in the end, why our truth was better than history. Why our destiny matters more than facts. The quantum cascade weapons, Tay broke in. You have to know what they'll really do. The calculations. Show us achieving our divine purpose, Catherine interrupted. Humanity had its chance. Now it's our turn to start over. To do it right this time. In orbit, the Starweaver's sensors detected multiple ships powering up their weapons. But they weren't aiming at Meridian Colony as expected. They were targeting the planet below. A cleansing fire, Catherine's voice was almost gentle. Our final proof of faith. Once Australia burns, there will be no more doubt. No more truth but ours. Tay's fingers flew over the console as she uploaded the virus. But even as she worked, she knew it wouldn't spread fast enough to stop the launches. They needed something else. Something. Then she saw it. In the original INCH ship's logs, a command buried so deep even the Truth Keepers had missed it. A final failsafe from those ancient pirates, designed to protect their investment. Captain, she called out. I need you to trust me one more time. What happened next would change everything. Legacy of Stars. The INCH pirates had never trusted anyone, not even themselves. Deep within their ship systems lay a final command, designed to protect their precious cargo from mutiny or madness. As Tay's fingers danced across the ancient console, she realized what she had to do. All INCH vessels were slaved to a master control system, she transmitted to the Starweaver. The colonists built their entire infrastructure on top of that foundation. If I can activate the original override, you'll shut down everything, Captain Zenos finished. Their weapons, their ships, their life support. You'll be killing them all. No, Tay's voice was steady. I'll be giving them a choice. Above the colony, the Ascension fleet hung like a string of deadly pearls against the star-filled sky. Their quantum cascade weapons powered up, ready to erase not just their targets, but their own world, in what High Judge Catherine saw as the ultimate act of faith. Tay opened a channel to all frequencies. This is Engineer Tay of the xenobiological research vessel Starweaver. To all citizens of Australia, you need to know the truth. In the communications center, Sarah and Dr. Retton worked frantically to bypass the colonial censors. The Truth Keeper's records might have been destroyed, but they had something more powerful: direct access to the original Inch ship's logs. Your ancestors weren't chosen by divine intervention, Tay continued. They were stolen. Taken from Earth by pirates who saw them as nothing more than valuable genetic stock. But what those pirates didn't understand was that they had captured something far more precious than mining slaves. They had captured the indomitable human spirit. Through every screen, every holographic projector in the colony, images began to play. The Inch ship's own records, showing the brutal reality of their ancestors' abduction. But also showing something else: their incredible resilience, their refusal to be broken. Your true history isn't one of divine selection, Tay's voice carried across the stunned silence. It's a story of survival against impossible odds. When the ship crashed, your ancestors didn't give up. They built something new from the wreckage. The lies about Earth's destruction weren't meant to condemn you, they were meant to protect you from a truth too painful to bear. In her command center, High Judge Catherine's face contorted with rage. Launch the weapons. Now. But nothing happened. The ships hung motionless in space, their systems locked by protocols written centuries before any of them were born. I've activated the Inch ship's master override, Tay explained. Every system in your colony that was built on their technology is now frozen. Including your life support. You have a choice to make, but you need to make it fast. Dr. Retton's voice joined hers on the broadcast. The quantum cascade weapons you created, they're flawed. The calculations show that using them would trigger a chain reaction through subspace. You wouldn't just be destroying your targets, you'd be risking the entire sector. You're lying, Catherine's voice shook. This is a trick. Our destiny is what we make it, Sarah cut in. The Truth Keepers weren't meant to preserve lies, High Judge. They were meant to wait until our people were ready for the truth. Look at the proof before you. Look at what we almost became. Captain Zenos' voice rumbled through the channel. Your atmosphere processors will fail in 15 minutes. Your choice must be made now. The Starweaver stands ready to evacuate your people, but we will not restore power until all weapons are deactivated. The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Then, from across the colony, reports began coming in. People were flooding the streets, but not in panic. They were gathering in the great assembly halls, in the temples and schools. They were talking, sharing stories passed down in secret for generations. The Truth Keepers weren't just one group, Sarah realized. Every family, every line, we all kept some piece of the truth alive. Waiting for this moment. High Judge Catherine's next words surprised everyone. Lower the weapons. All of them. Engineer Tay, help us remember who we really are. The next few hours were chaos, but a different kind than they had feared. As life support was restored and the quantum cascade weapons were dismantled, something remarkable happened. The people of Australia began to share their stories, not the official histories, but the personal ones. Tales of ancestors who had survived the impossible, who had built a new world while carrying the weight of unspeakable trauma. They turned their pain into strength, Dr. Retton observed, watching the colony's celebrations turn from blind faith to genuine joy. But strength doesn't have to mean isolation. 3 days later, as the Starweaver prepared to depart, Captain Zenos stood with his crew and watched the colony begin its transformation. Federation ships were already on their way, bringing teachers, counselors, and most importantly, connection to the wider human family. The Inch pirates thought they were creating perfect slaves, Tay mused. Instead, they created something they could never have imagined, a testament to humanity's greatest strength, our ability to face the truth about ourselves and choose a better path. Sarah, now appointed as the colony's liaison to the Federation, joined them for a final meeting. "We'll need help," she admitted. "Generations of isolation and lies won't be undone overnight. But for the first time, we're ready to be part of something bigger than ourselves." As the Starweaver broke orbit, Captain Zenos turned to his crew. "There will be other lost colonies out there. Other forgotten children of Earth. But thanks to what happened here, we know better how to help them find their way home." Dr. Retton's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Perhaps that's the real legacy of this place. Not just survival, but redemption. The proof that even the darkest origins can lead to light." Tay looked back at the planet one last time. The quantum cascade weapons were being dismantled, their technology studied so that such dangerous knowledge could be properly contained. But more importantly, the people of Australia were beginning a new kind of ascension, not away from humanity, but back towards it. "Captain," she said quietly. "Request permission to update the star charts." "Granted." "What designation?" Tay smiled. "Hope's Landing. Because sometimes, the longest journey isn't through space, it's back to who we really are." The Starweaver jumped to warp, leaving behind a world forever changed. In the ship's registry, a new entry appeared, "Hope's Landing, a testament to humanity's capacity for both survival and grace. First contact achieved. Welcome home." The end.